South Africa, one of Africa's most powerful and rich countries, but behind its power and wealth lies a dark past, a past full of racism and foreign powers. Today, we are taking a look at the war of South Africa's dark past. So, in 1652, the Dutch decided to colonize South Africa due to its position not only on the continent, but on the planet as well. The Dutch used it as a trading hub and a rest stop for ships who were on their way to and from Asia. The first permanent Dutch settlement around what is now Cape Town. About 154 years later, in 1806, the British took the Dutch colony in South Africa for the second time, the first time being a couple years prior before being taken back by the Dutch soon after. Once the British colonized, the racism in South Africa ramped up. Like it wasn't bad already, but it got worse under British rule. After 96 years of British rule, war broke out in modern-day South Africa, Lesotho, and Eswatini, which would become known as the Second Boer War or the South African War. The war was fought against the British Empire by the Orange Free State and the South African Republic. The reason the war started was the conflicting political ideologies of imperialism and republicanism, the discovery of gold on the Witwatersrand, tension between political leaders, the Jameson Raid, and the Uitlander franchise. After much more tension and failed negotiations with the leader of the SAR, Paul Kruger, more British troops were sent to the colony. The Boers, realizing war was unavoidable, took the offensive. On October 9, 1899, they issued an ultimatum to the British government, declaring that a state of war would exist between Britain and the two Boer republics if the British did not remove their troops from along the border. The ultimatum expired without resolution, and the war began on October 11, 1899. In the beginning, the Boers seemed to be doing really well. The British were not organized and they were weak. The Boer armies attacked on two fronts, into the British colony of Natal from the SAR, and into the northern Cape Colony from the Orange Free State. The northern districts of the Cape Colony rebelled against the British and joined the Boer forces. In late 1899 and early 1900, the Boers defeated the British in a number of major engagements and besieged the key towns of Ladysmith, Mafeking, and Kimberley. Particularly of note among Boer victories in this period are those that occurred at Magersfontein, Colesberg, and Stormberg, during what became known as Black Week, which lasted from December 10th to December 15th, 1899. Kruger's October 1899 offensive had taken the British by surprise, and it accounts for the early Boer victories. However, the arrival of large numbers of British reinforcements by early 1900 made an eventual Boer defeat inevitable. In the second phase, the British, under Lords Kitchener and Roberts, relieved the besieged towns and rapidly advanced up the lines of rail transportation. Bloemfontein, which I think that's how you say it, the capital of the Orange Free State, was occupied by the British in February 1900, and Johannesburg and Pretoria, the capital of the SAR, in May and June. Kruger evaded capture and went to Europe, where he was unable to gain assistance to fight the British. In late 1900, they were able to keep the British at bay using hit-and-run guerrilla tactics. Lord Kitchener responded to this with barbed wire and blockhouses along the railways, but when these failed, he retaliated with the scorched earth policy, which is where you pretty much burn the dirt so it can't be used to grow crops and other plant life, was widely utilized by the Romanian principalities of Wallachia and Moldavia, modern-day Moldova. Prince Mircea I of Wallachia used it against the Ottomans in 1395, and Prince Stephen III of Moldavia scorched the earth in his country as the Ottoman army advanced in 1475 and 1476. The scorched earth policy began taking effect on the civilian population, who were soon pushed into the concentration camps by the British. The concentration camps were ill-equipped to deal with all the prisoners, and crowding and food shortages became regular issues. The first two camps were built in 1900, and many more were built after that to try to house the Boer civilians who were affected by the war. The conditions of the camps were horrific. Disease was widespread, and there was very little food for the prisoners. You had to learn to starve to survive in those camps. But as the fighting raged on, the conditions in the camps worsened. More prisoners were being brought into the camps, and there was less and less food to go around due to the British's scorched earth policy. By the time the war ended, the British suffered 22,092 casualties, 22,828 wounded, and over 75,000 sent home because of sickness or other means. The Boer suffered 6,189 casualties and had over 24,000 captured who were sent overseas. There was also 46,370 plus civilian fatalities, with over 26,000 Boer women and children being killed in the concentration camps. Over 150,000 Boer POWs were in the camps, and many of those were left completely destitute after the end of the war. The war in the camps not only marked the beginning of the questioning of the British Empire's veneer of impenetrable global dominance, but it caused some of Britain's colonies to even sympathize for the Boers and caused many people from other neutral countries, including the German Empire, United States, Russia, and even some parts of the British Empire, such as Australia and Ireland, to volunteer in assisting the Boers. In the end, the Orange Free State and the South African Republic made peace with the British, ending the war on the 31st of May, 1902. Both countries fell under British rule until May 31st, 1961, when South Africa formally gained independence. Even though the war ended almost 120 years ago, with this year marking the 120th anniversary of the end of the war, the scars still show to this day. A few camps still stand, and there are many memorials remembering those brave men who were willing to give their lives to try to free South Africa from the British.